Alright, so another kingdom in domain Eukarya is Plantae. So this is what we're going to be discussing for the next couple of days. In Kingdom Plantae, it includes a wide variety of organisms known as what you know as plants. They can range in size from like the giant sequoia trees that are out in Washington State and Oregon and the top of California, which can reach up to 80 meters, which equals like 270 feet, to the smallest flowering plant, which can fit just on the tip of your finger. Now, as all different organisms have characteristics, plants have some commonalities as well. All plants are multicellular, which means that they have more than one cell that make them up. As we said, they're in Eukarya, which means that they're eukaryotes. Eukaryotes, if you recall, have a nucleus. They also have membrane-bound organelles. And so if they have membrane-bound organelles, they are going to have the endoplasmic reticulum, the mitochondria, the lysosome. Now, ones that they have more of, we're going to look at again in a little bit. So as I said earlier about plants, you can see some of the different kinds of plants just in these two pictures. In the forest picture, you can see the very tall, woody-like plants, and you can tell that the sun is shining through down to the lower portion where there are some plants that are growing down at the bottom. In the second picture, this is also a type of plant that looks much different, and we're going to find out that there are many different kinds of plants in this lesson. Just as in all the other organisms we have talked about, plants also have a life cycle. They have two specific stages of life cycles. They have a sporophyte phase, where they actually get to go through a process. So here's the plant right here, where it says sporophyte stage. What happens is they produce spores, and then those spores end up coming down here in the life cycle, and they produce different cells. Sometimes they produce a plant that has female cells, and then another male cells. So plants actually can be in a specific gender. They can be a male plant or they can be a female plant, where they then reproduce sexually. Or the plant could have both male and female reproductive systems, and they reproduce asexually, just like the pea plants did for Gregor Mendel in all of his experiments, until he cross-pollinated them because he knew more about them as well. So the second phase is the gametophyte stage. So the gametophyte stage is the plant where it produces the gametes, like I said, the egg cells that are located here, the sperm cells that are located here at the top. All right, let me erase this quick. And then what happens is when they finally get connected, as you can see the little sperm cells here, and then the egg cell that's located here comes up into this life cycle, and the sperm ends up into the egg, it then produces a zygote. And we've talked about zygotes in the past. And once that happens, this seed becomes fertilized. And when it becomes fertilized, it goes right back into the sporophyte phase, or stage, where the spores that are genetically identical to the parent, all right, grow up, and they have to grow up into a suitable habitat, and they grow into the new plants. Again, they produce the spores, and then it just continues around and around. So those spores then come into, and they produce egg cells, or they produce sperm cells, again, into the gametophyte stage. It continues around, so one generation is from the sporophyte stage, and then the next one is in the gametophyte stage. So it's as if it is going around in every other generation, or that it skips a generation. And as I said before, we definitely have some specific organelles that are very characteristic to plants and only plants. We have, in general terms, the chloroplast, right? Those are the ones that are going to capture the sunlight's energy, and they're going to store the energy, and when it stores the energy in particular, we're going to have it here in this organelle. So we have, like we did earlier in the year, the inner membrane and the outer membrane that are going to make up the chloroplast. And remember, they're in every single cell. And the green pigment color is going to be that chlorophyll. And so that's what we have for the chloroplast. Only plants are going to have them, not animal cells. Then we have our cell wall. And the cell wall, if you recall, was that piece that went on the outside, and it helped to protect the cell, and it was to help them stay sturdy, to stay strong. And if you can think of different plants that are out there, even when the wind is blowing, they have the opportunity of standing upright most of the time. Then the last one that we have to talk about is also found in plant and in animal cells. However, they are much larger in a plant cell, and that one would be this huge organelle here. And that one is the vacuole. The vacuole is what stores the water for the plant. And as we discussed earlier in the school year, the vacuole is the part that the tree, the plant, the flower, anything that is the plant itself needs to hold the water, because it can't just walk to the stream and decide to get a drink. It needs to store the water because it relies on the rain, the runoff, the groundwater in order for to get its water. So plants make food in their leaves. We know this to be the term photosynthesis. And we had talked about it in that wonderful equation that we did earlier this year, the 6CO2 plus the 6H2O, plus the sunlight energy and we have that arrow yields to C6H12O6 plus 6O2. And if we can recall that specific equation, then we can say that we have the carbon dioxide plus the water plus the sunlight's energy is going to make for us the glucose and the oxygen. And if we can remember from back then, we have 6 parts of carbon dioxide, 6 parts of water, we have the sunlight, and then we have 1 molecule of sugar, and then we are back to 6 molecules of oxygen that comes out. So here we have the water, the light, the chemical energy, right? So when we have that going on for us, number 1 says the chloroplast traps the sunlight's energy. And here we have it down here.